Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Allow the weight of the day to drift away. As you sink into stillness, let me take you on a journey far back in time, to a place where myths and history intertwine, to the very dawn of Rome, long before Rome became an empire, before marble temples, mighty armies, and emperors. There was a humble beginning, a story whispered by rivers, mountains, and the wind, a story of destiny, and of people who believed they were chosen by the gods. It begins with the river Tiber flowing gently through the heart of Italy. Its waters shimmered beneath the golden sun, carrying life to the valleys and secrets of what was yet to come. The land around the Tiber was fertile, rich with forests, hills, and streams. It was a land waiting to be claimed, waiting for a people to rise and give it a name that would echo across eternity. But before Rome, there was Alba Longa, an ancient city said to be founded by the descendants of Aeneas, a hero of Troy who fled the burning ruins of his homeland. Guided by fate, he carried his people to a new land, a land promised by the gods. From this line came two brothers, their names Romulus and Remus, twin sons of Mars, the god of war, and a mortal priestess named Rhea Silvia. Their birth was wrapped in mystery, and their lives marked by divine purpose. When they were born, danger surrounded them. Their great-uncle feared they would one day overthrow him, and so he ordered them cast away, left to die upon the river. But destiny would not allow it. The twins floated upon the waters of the Tiber, their small cries carried by the current, until the river placed them upon its bank. There, a she-wolf discovered them, and instead of harm, she gave them life. The she-wolf nursed them, protecting them in her den. Her warmth became their shelter. Her strength became their guardian. And so Romulus and Remus survived, raised not by men, but by the wild. Later, a shepherd named Faustulus found them. He and his wife took the boys into their home, raising them as their own, teaching them the ways of men. But the fire of destiny still burned within. As the twins grew, so did their courage. They became leaders among their peers, known for their strength and for their defiance against tyranny, until at last they discovered their true heritage. They learned who they were, the sons of Mars, and rightful heirs to Alba Longa. But instead of reclaiming the old city, they dreamed of building something new, something greater. They returned to the banks of the Tiber, to the 7 hills that rose proudly above the land. Here, they decided to found a city, a city that would stand for ages, a city born of struggle and touched by the gods. Yet, even between brothers, conflict arose. Romulus and Remus disagreed. They could not decide where to build or who would rule. And so, fate turned brother against brother. In a tragic moment, Romulus struck down Remus. With grief in his heart, yet destiny in his hands, Romulus became the sole founder, and he gave the city his name: Rome. The city began as nothing more than a gathering of huts, wooden walls rising upon the Palatine Hill, simple, humble, fragile. But within those walls lived ambition and the will to survive. Early Rome was not the Rome of marble. It was a Rome of shepherds and farmers, a place where men and women lived close to the earth. They tilled the soil, herded their flocks, and worshipped the gods who watched over them. Romulus opened the doors of his new city, inviting exiles, wanderers, and the lost. Rome became a refuge, a sanctuary for those with nowhere else to go. And from this mixture of people, strength began to grow. But the city lacked one thing: women. Without them, Rome could not flourish. So Romulus devised a plan, one that would forever shape Rome's legacy. He invited the neighboring Sabines, welcoming them to a festival in honor of Neptune. As the Sabines celebrated, the Romans seized their daughters, carrying them into the city. The rape of the Sabine women, it was called. At first, there was outrage. Fathers and brothers swore revenge. Yet the women themselves pleaded for peace. They had become wives, mothers, and daughters of Rome. And through their voices, unity was forged. The Sabines and Romans became one people. Rome grew stronger. Its population increased. Its walls stretched wider, and its influence began to spread. No longer a small village, but the beginning of a rising power. Romulus ruled as king, a leader both feared and respected. He organized the Senate, a council of elders to guide the city. He divided the people into tribes and established laws to govern them. Yet, as all men do, Romulus too met his end. Some say he was struck down by the Senate. Others say he vanished into the heavens, taken by the gods, and worshipped thereafter as Quirinus. With his passing, Rome entered a new age. kings would rise after him, each shaping the city in their own way. But the memory of Romulus, the wolf-suckled child, the slayer of his brother, the founder of Rome, would never be forgotten. From the riverbank where two infants once cried, to the hills where a city rose, Rome began as a dream, a fragile spark that grew into a flame and would one day set the world ablaze. This was the dawn of Rome, a story not just of kings and gods, but of survival. Close your eyes once again, breathe slowly, feel the calmness of night settling around you, and allow me to carry you deeper into the story of Rome as we move from its dawn into the age of kings, after Romulus, the founder of Rome, was gone. The city he built did not crumble. Instead, it longed for order, for guidance, for a ruler who could lead its people into the future. Thus began the era known as the Roman Kingdom, a time when 7 kings would reign, each leaving their mark upon the city, each shaping Rome into something greater. The first of these kings was Numa Pompilius. Unlike Romulus, who had been a warrior, Numa was a man of peace. He was wise, gentle, and deeply devoted to the gods. Where Romulus built Rome with the sword, Numa shaped it with spirit. He created the sacred priesthoods. He built temples and established rituals so that Rome might find favor with the divine. He gave the people laws and taught them justice. Under his reign, the city grew calmer, stronger, and more united. After Numa came Tullus Hostilius, a king of fire and war. Unlike Numa's peace, Tullus believed in strength. He expanded Rome through battle, clashing with neighboring peoples. It was during his reign that Rome destroyed Alba Longa, the very city from which Romulus and Remus once came. Rome absorbed its people, its traditions, and grew even larger. But Tullus's hunger for war was unending. He forgot the gods. He mocked the sacred rites. And so, legend says, Jupiter struck him down with lightning, a warning to all kings who would abandon piety. After him came Ancus Marcius, a man who balanced war and peace. He built the first bridge across the Tiber, uniting the land beyond the river with Rome. He expanded the city's territory and strengthened its defenses. But he also welcomed new citizens, turning Rome into a melting pot of cultures. Then came Lucius Tarquinius Priscus, known as Tarquin the Elder, a man not born a Roman, but of Etruscan blood. He brought with him new customs, new ideas, and the grandeur of kingship. He doubled the size of the Senate, built the great Circus Maximus, where chariots thundered and crowds roared. And he began great works that would shape the city forever. Yet his reign ended in violence. Ambitious men struck him down. But his wife, Tanaquil, ensured his vision continued. For she placed Servius Tullius, his adopted son, upon the throne. Servius was a remarkable king, born of humble origins. Some said he was touched by the gods, for a flame had once burned around his head as a child. Yet he was unharmed. Seen as chosen by destiny, he reformed Rome's society, dividing its people into classes, organizing them for war and for government. He built new walls around the city, expanding Rome further than ever before. Under his rule, the city thrived, becoming stronger, wealthier, and more secure. But power breeds jealousy, and in the end, Servius was betrayed. His own daughter and son-in-law, Tarquinius Superbus, turned against him. He was murdered in the streets, and his body cast aside as Tarquinius claimed the throne. Tarquinius Superbus, the proud, the last king of Rome. He ruled not with wisdom, nor with justice, but with cruelty. He silenced the Senate. He seized power by fear, and he forced the people into labor, building great monuments, but at a terrible cost. Under him, Rome reached new heights, but the hearts of its people grew heavy, for he cared little for their voices, only for his throne. The breaking point came with his family. His son committed a terrible crime against a noble woman named Lucretia. Her grief was too great, and she ended her own life, but not before demanding justice. Her death ignited a fire. The people rose, led by Lucius Junius Brutus. They drove out Tarquinius and his family, and swore never again to be ruled by kings. Thus ended the Roman kingdom, and with it the line of the 7 kings. Rome would no longer have a monarch. Instead, it would build a new system, a republic where power rested not in one man, but in the people and their Senate. The Roman kingdom had given the city walls, temples, laws, and traditions. But now, Rome stood at the edge of something greater, something that would shape not only its destiny, but the destiny of the world. The kingdom had fallen, but Rome was only just beginning. Close your eyes. Let the whispers of history guide you. The night is calm. The stars shimmer softly, and the Tiber flows silently, carrying us into the next chapter of Rome. The age of kings was over. The people had risen. They had cast out Tarquinius Superbus, the proud, the cruel king who had ruled with fear. And now Rome stood at a crossroad. Would it collapse without a king? Or would it find a new way? A way that no city had dared before. The answer was born in fire and in sorrow. The tragedy of Lucretia, her cry for justice, had sparked a revolution. And from that fire emerged a new vision, a vision of freedom and shared power. Lucius Junius Brutus, the man who led the revolt, swore before the people that never again would Rome bow to a king. No more crowns, no more thrones. Instead, Rome would belong to its citizens, and thus the Republic was born. The new system was fragile, uncertain and yet filled with promise. Instead of one king, two consuls would lead the state, elected each year, holding equal power, so that no man might rule alone. Beside them stood the Senate, an assembly of Rome's elders, who guided with wisdom and advised with caution. Together, they formed the heartbeat of the Republic. Beside them stood the Senate, an assembly of Rome's elders, who guided with wisdom and advised with caution. Together, they formed the heartbeat of the Republic. But freedom is never free, and the birth of the Republic was not peaceful. Tarquinius Superbus, the fallen king, was not ready to let go. He sought allies, other kings and neighbors, and he waged war to reclaim his throne. Rome faced great danger. Battles raged. The people feared the return of monarchy. But Brutus, the guardian of liberty, stood firm even when his own sons betrayed him. Plotting to restore the king, Brutus did not waver. He chose the Republic over blood, over family, and he ordered their execution. For Rome, for freedom, it was a painful choice, but it became the foundation of the Republic, that no man, no family was above the law. Slowly, the wars ended. Tarquinius was defeated, and Rome stood free. The monarchy was gone forever, and a new era had begun. The Republic grew. It was not perfect. The rich still held more power than the poor. The Senate still favored the nobility, and the common people, the plebeians, struggled for their voices to be heard. Yet the Republic endured, because it was built not on one man, but on a system, on laws, on the idea that power should be shared. Over time, the plebeians demanded their rights. They fought not with swords, but with protest and with persistence. They created the office of the tribune to protect their interests, to speak for the people, against the Senate, against injustice. Thus, Rome became a city of balance, of constant struggle between patrician and plebeian, between power and liberty. But in that struggle, Rome grew stronger. The Republic gave Rome resilience. The Republic gave Rome discipline. The Republic gave Rome unity. And soon, it would give Rome an empire. But for now, in this chapter, it was only beginning. The birth of the Roman Republic, a fragile dream, carved from blood and bound by hope. The kings were gone, but Rome was alive, and its story had only just begun. Close your eyes. The river Tiber flows quietly. The winds of Rome whisper softly. And the story of struggle begins. Rome was free. The kings were gone. The Republic was alive. But freedom was not equal. At the heart of Rome, two great orders stood apart: the patricians and the plebeians. The patricians were the nobles, the guardians of wealth and land. They held the Senate. They controlled the laws. They spoke with power, and they ruled with privilege. The plebeians were the many: farmers, craftsmen, merchants, and soldiers. They carried the weight of Rome. They fought in its armies. They built its walls. But they had little voice, little protection, and little power. This imbalance could not last. The plebeians demanded justice. They wanted rights. They wanted protection from debt, from hunger, from slavery, and from the dominance of the patricians. So began the long struggle. The struggle of the orders, a battle not of swords, but of voices, of protests, of secession. The plebeians withdrew. They marched to the sacred mount, and they refused to fight for Rome until their cries were heard, until their rights were granted. The city trembled. Rome could not stand without its people, and so the patricians were forced to listen, to bend, to yield. From this struggle, the office of the tribune was born. Men of the people, chosen by the plebeians, to defend their lives, to shield them from oppression, and to speak against injustice. The tribunes were sacred, untouchable. Their words could stop the Senate. Their veto could block the consuls. For the first time, the plebeians had a voice, but the struggle was not over. For centuries, the orders clashed. The patricians clung to privilege. The plebeians fought for equality. Step by step, law by law, the balance shifted. The 12 tables were written, laws carved in stone, so that justice could not be hidden, so that all could see and know their rights. Slowly, the plebeians won victories. The right to marry patricians, the right to hold office, the right to sit in the Senate, the right to share in Rome's destiny. And through this struggle, Rome became stronger, its society more balanced, its people more united. The struggle of the orders was not only a fight for equality, it was the forging of Rome's identity, a city where no man was above the law, where power was shared, and where liberty grew. The patricians remained. The plebeians endured. But together, they built the Republic, a foundation so strong that it would carry Rome into greatness. The struggle was long. The struggle was painful. But in the end, it gave Rome its strength. Now rest, for tomorrow, the Republic will face new trials, new battles, and greater destinies. Close your eyes. The seas are calm, the winds of the Mediterranean whisper, and the story of Rome's greatest enemy begins, far across the sea. Beyond the waves, stood Carthage, a mighty city, a realm of merchants and masters of the sea. Carthage was rich. Its ships ruled the waters. Its traders brought wealth from every shore. Its harbors glistened with power. But Rome had grown. From a city on the Tiber to a force that stretched across Italy. Its soldiers disciplined. Its people united. Its hunger for power unstoppable. The two worlds collided. Rome and Carthage, two giants, fated to clash in the wars that would shape history. The First Punic War began. Rome fought for Sicily. Carthage resisted fiercely. On land and on sea, the battles raged. Rome was not a naval power, but it learned. It built ships, it trained sailors, it created the corvus, a bridge to board enemy vessels. And with this, Rome turned sea battles into land battles. After long years, Rome emerged victorious. Sicily was theirs, and Carthage paid dearly. But peace did not last. For from Carthage rose a warrior, Hannibal, the thunder of Africa, the terror of Rome. The Second Punic War began. Hannibal led his army, not by sea, but across the mountains, across the Alps with elephants, and soldiers hardened by fire. The Romans were unprepared. At Trebia, at Lake Trasimene, at Cannae, Rome suffered defeat after defeat. Its armies crushed, its pride shattered. But Rome did not fall. It endured, it resisted, it called upon its allies, and it rebuilt its strength. Years passed. Hannibal marched through Italy, but Rome held firm, never surrendering, never breaking. Then came Scipio Africanus, a general of brilliance. He carried the war to Africa, and at Zama, Rome struck back. Hannibal was defeated. Carthage was humbled. And Rome rose higher. Yet still, Carthage endured weakened, but not destroyed. The Third Punic War came. Rome was relentless. It demanded Carthage fall. And when the city resisted, Rome unleashed its fury. The walls were torn down, the people enslaved, the city burned. For days the flames rose, until Carthage was no more, and in its ashes, Rome stood supreme, master of the Mediterranean. The Punic Wars were over, but Rome's destiny had only just begun. Now rest, for the story continues. The Republic will expand, and with it, new trials, new victories, and new shadows. The Punic Wars had ended. Rome stood tall, victorious, powerful, and unchallenged in the West. But Rome hungered for more. Its eyes turned east, across the seas, toward Greece, toward Macedon, toward the kingdoms born of Alexander. The Mediterranean lay before Rome, a sea of opportunity, a path to empire. In Greece, the kings of Macedon still ruled, proud. Strong but divided, Rome entered, first as an ally, then as a master. The legions marched, their discipline unmatched, their formations unbroken. At Cynocephaly, the Roman maniples shattered the phalanx, and Greece trembled. Yet Rome promised freedom. The cities cheered. They hailed Rome as a liberator. But freedom under Rome was a chain unseen. Soon the wars continued. The Seleucid Empire rose against Rome, led by Antiochus, but the legions stood firm. At Magnesia, Rome triumphed. The East bowed, and Rome's power grew. The Mediterranean was no longer divided. It was a Roman lake, from Spain to Greece, from Africa to Asia Minor. Trade flowed. Wealth poured into Rome. Gold, silver, grain, and slaves. Rome grew rich, but with wealth came corruption. With power came ambition. And with conquest came unrest. Still, the legions marched. The Senate commanded. And the Republic expanded. Ever wider, ever stronger. The Mediterranean was Rome's. And with each victory, the world seemed smaller, and Rome seemed eternal. But shadows were forming. Ambition burned in men's hearts. Rivalries deepened, and civil storms gathered. For though Rome conquered the seas, it had yet to conquer itself. Rest now, for the story continues, and the heart of Rome will soon be tested. Rome was vast. The Republic stretched across the Mediterranean. Wealth poured into the city, but so did inequality. The rich grew richer. The poor grew desperate. Land once tilled by Roman farmers was swallowed by great estates, worked by slaves, and many citizens were left with nothing. Into this storm came two brothers, Tiberius Gracchus and Gaius Gracchus, men of vision, men of passion. Tiberius sought reform. He spoke of land for the poor, of justice, of balance. But the Senate resisted. The powerful clung to their wealth. And Tiberius was struck down, murdered by those who feared change. Yet his dream did not die. His brother Gaius rose in his place. He spoke louder. He reached further and promised hope. Gaius sought to give grain to the poor, citizenship to allies, and limits to the Senate's greed. But once again, the powerful resisted, and Gaius too fell. His blood spilled. Another martyr of reform. The Republic was shaken. Violence had entered its heart. No longer debate alone, but bloodshed and fear. Then came the Allies, the Italian cities. They had fought beside Rome, bled beside Rome, but they were denied full citizenship, denied equality, denied honor. Frustration burned into rebellion. The social war began. Allies against Rome, brothers against brothers. Italy consumed by strife. Rome fought fiercely. The legions marched. Battles raged across the peninsula. And though Rome triumphed, the cost was immense. In the end, Rome granted citizenship to those who laid down arms. A bitter victory, for the Allies had won in defeat, and Rome had changed forever. The Gracchi had revealed the cracks. The social wars had widened them. The Republic stood, but it trembled, its foundation unsteady. And in the distance, new men rose, generals with power, ambition and loyalty bought by armies. The Republic's greatest threat would come not from outside, but from within. Rest now, for the story of Rome continues, and its storms have only just begun. Rome was restless. The Republic trembled under ambition. Generals vied for glory, and the people longed for a leader. Into this world was born Julius Caesar, a man of noble lineage, yet burdened with debt, and driven by boundless ambition. From his earliest days, Caesar sought greatness. He studied the art of rhetoric. He charmed with his words. and he moved the hearts of men. But words alone would not be enough. He entered the army and fought with courage, earning the Corona Civica, a crown of honor, for saving a fellow Roman's life. His path led him into politics, where alliances became his weapons and promises became his tools. He courted the people, he courted the Senate, and he built his reputation. Yet Rome was fractured. Rivals circled like wolves, and power was the prize. So Caesar formed the first triumvirate, a secret pact with Pompey the Great and Crassus the Wealthy. Together they bent the Republic to serve their ambitions. As consul, Caesar passed reforms, winning favor with the people. But it was not enough. His hunger demanded more. He set his eyes on Gaul, and there he carved his legend. For nearly a decade, he waged war against tribes fierce and unyielding. Battle after battle, victory after victory. Caesar's name echoed through Rome. He wrote of his triumphs, clear, calm, and powerful, so that all would know his genius and his glory. But success breeds fear, and fear breeds envy. The Senate grew uneasy. Pompey turned against him, and whispers filled the city. Caesar must be stopped. Caesar must be contained. But Caesar would not yield. He marched south, across the Rubicon, with his legions at his back. And in that moment, the fate of the Republic changed. Forever, Rome descended into civil war, brother against brother, Senate against general, old order against new. And at the heart of it stood Julius Caesar, unyielding, ambitious, and destined. The Republic trembled, and soon the age of kings long past would seem ready to return. Rest now, for Rome's storm grows louder, and Caesar's rise has only just begun. Rome stood in awe. Julius Caesar had returned victorious. He had crushed Pompey, defeated his rivals, and now ruled Rome as dictator. The Senate bowed. The people cheered. And yet, shadows gathered. For power breeds envy, and absolute power. Breeds fear. Caesar had been named dictator for life. His face carved on coins. His statue placed among kings. And whispers filled the Senate. Has Caesar become a monarch? Will Rome's republic fall? Among his friends, among his allies, seeds of betrayal began to grow. Marcus Brutus, honored and noble, loved Caesar like a father, yet loved the republic more. Cassius, sharp and restless, spoke words of venom, fanned the flames of conspiracy. Together with others, they plotted in silence. They plotted in shadows. They plotted for the Ides of March. The day dawned, bright and heavy with fate. The soothsayer warned, beware the Ides of March. But Caesar smiled and dismissed the omen. He entered the Senate, unarmed, unaware, surrounded by men he trusted. Then the blades flashed. Steel struck flesh. Once, twice. Again. Caesar staggered. His robe stained crimson. And as the circle closed, he saw a familiar face. Et tu, brute. You too, my son. And with those words, Caesar fell beneath the statue of Pompey, his rival, his enemy, now his witness. The Senate chamber echoed with silence. The Republic had struck down its ruler. But in truth, it had struck down its peace. For Caesar's death was not an end. It was the spark of greater wars, of greater turmoil, of the end of the Republic itself. Rest now, for the Ides have passed, and Rome's fate moves toward empire. The death of Julius Caesar left Rome trembling, the Senate shaken, the streets echoing with rage, the Republic wounded. Blood had been spilled, but peace did not follow. Civil war erupted once more. Brother against brother, Roman against Roman. From the chaos rose a young man, Octavian, the adopted son of Caesar. Quiet, patient but filled with destiny. He allied with Mark Antony and with Lepidus. Together they formed the second triumvirate. Together they hunted Caesar's killers. Brutus Cassius met their deaths, and Rome bathed in civil war. But alliances in Rome were fragile. Power devoured friendship. And soon, Octavian turned against Antony. Antony, drawn to Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, dreamed of ruling east and west. But Octavian dreamed bigger. He dreamed of Rome itself. The clash came. At Actium on the sea, where Octavian's fleet crushed Antony and Cleopatra, their love drowned, their empire lost, their lives ended. Octavian returned to Rome, victorious, undisputed, and yet clever enough to hide his power. He spoke of restoring the Republic. He gave honors to the Senate, but in truth, he held every string, every army, every coin, every law. The Senate named him Augustus, the revered one, the first emperor of Rome. The Republic was gone, its ashes buried, and from it rose the Roman Empire. Augustus brought peace, the Pax Romana, 200 years of order, of roads, of trade, of greatness. Rome now ruled not as a republic, but as an empire, with Augustus at its heart, a master of power and a master of illusion. The world had changed. Rome had changed. And history had entered a new age. Rest now, for the Republic sleeps, and the Empire awakens. The civil wars had ended, the Republic had fallen, and the Empire had risen, with Augustus on the throne. Rome entered a new chapter. This was the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. 2 centuries of order, of prosperity, of quiet strength. Augustus knew that war had exhausted Rome, that the people longed for stability. And so, he gave them peace. He reformed the laws, balanced the treasury, created standing armies, and built monuments, temples, forums, theaters, and aqueducts. Rome began to shine like never before, its streets busy, its markets filled, its ports alive with trade. From Britain to Egypt, from Spain to the deserts of Syria, the empire stretched wider than ever. Goods traveled the roads, silks from the east, gold from Africa, grain from Egypt, wine from Gaul, all flowing into Rome. The Roman legions guarded the frontiers, strong, disciplined, unmatched, but rarely tested. For enemies feared the eagle standard. With peace came culture. Writers flourished. Poets sang of empire. Virgil wrote of Aeneas, Ovid of love and myth, Livy of Rome's history. The arts blossomed. Marble statues, grand architecture. The Colosseum began to rise, a symbol of Rome's might. People felt secure. They could sleep at night without fear of civil war, without fear of famine, without fear of chaos. Yet, beneath the peace was power. Unseen, controlled by emperors who held destiny in their hands. But for the people, for farmers, for merchants, for soldiers and poets, this was a golden age. The Pax Romana lasted 200 years, from Augustus to Marcus Aurelius. Generations lived and died, knowing only empire, knowing only peace. Rome stood tall, unshaken, unmatched. The world's heart, the world's power. 2 centuries of calm before the storms, of silence before the thunder. The empire glowed, and the people dreamed. Rest now, for you too are part of the Pax Romana, a world where peace and empire walk hand in hand. After Augustus, after the long peace, Rome saw leaders who carried the torch of empire and lifted it even higher. First came Trajan, the soldier emperor, the conqueror. He pushed Rome's borders further than ever before, into Dacia, into Mesopotamia. The empire stretched to its greatest size. The people loved him, for he built for them markets, roads, aqueducts, and his greatest gift, Trajan's Forum, a place of trade, of law, of gathering. His victory column still stands, carved with battles, with legions marching, with Rome's story in stone, a memory of triumph and glory. After Trajan came Hadrian, the traveler emperor. He walked the empire. He knew its lands, its people, its strengths, and its limits. Hadrian built walls to hold the empire steady. Most famous, in the wilds of Britannia, Hadrian's Wall. Stone and strength, a line between Rome and the unknown. He rebuilt the Pantheon, a temple of perfect harmony. Its great dome, its oculus opening to the heavens, still a wonder, still eternal. Then came Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, a man of thought, a man of wisdom, a man of duty. He ruled in hardship, wars on the frontiers, plague in the cities. Yet he stayed calm, steady, guided by reason, by philosophy, by the Stoic way. His meditations still whisper words of patience, words of strength, words of quiet truth. He was emperor, yet also a student of life, of nature, of fate. These were the great emperors: Trajan, the conqueror; Hadrian, the builder; Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher. Together, they carried Rome. Through power, through beauty, through wisdom, their monuments still rise. Their words still echo. Their memory still glows. They were not only rulers, they were Rome itself. But not all emperors were remembered in glory. Some left behind fear, chaos, and shame. Caligula, the mad emperor, once loved, soon hated. His reign filled with cruelty, his madness unchecked. He made his horse a consul. He drowned Rome in fear. Then came Nero, the artist emperor, who played while Rome burned, accused of fire, accused of tyranny, accused of cruelty, yet remembered in whispers, of music, of death, of downfall, and later Commodus, the son of Marcus Aurelius. But unlike his father, he was no philosopher. He was a tyrant, obsessed with games. With himself, he fought as a gladiator, not as an emperor. His rule marked the slow decay, a shadow over Rome. Great emperors brought Rome to glory, but dark emperors showed its fragility. One lifted Rome, another dragged it down. Together, they tell the whole truth of empire. Rome was mighty, but even the strongest empire faces enemies at its gates. From the forests of the north to the deserts of the east, Rome's foes rose. Fierce, relentless, unyielding. The barbarians, tribes from Germania, tall, strong, untamed. They did not fear Rome. They did not bow to legions. They struck without mercy. Ambush, surprise, chaos, Their forests were their shield, their axes, their spears, their fury unmatched. Rome called them savages, but they were free. Free men, fighting for their own lands. Then came the Parthians, masters of the bow, riders of swift horses. Their arrows rained upon Roman legions, deadly, silent. Precise Rome struggled. Its heavy infantry slowed, its formations broken. Parthian horse archers moved like shadows. Here one moment, gone the next. Rome could not catch them. And beyond the Parthians rose another enemy, the Persians, successors of ancient kings, builders of empires. They challenged Rome not with raids, but with empires of their own. Great armies, mighty cities, endless ambition. They stood as equals, rivals in power, rivals in glory. Rome fought them for centuries. Border wars, epic battles, sieges and betrayals. Neither empire could destroy the other, but both grew weary, locked in eternal struggle. Rome's enemies shaped its destiny. They forced Rome to adapt, to learn, to change. Rome grew stronger because of its foes, but also weaker. For every victory drained it. Every defeat scarred it. Every war bled it. The barbarians, the Parthians, the Persians, each in their own way, challenged the might of Rome and prepared the path for the empire's fall, the 3rd century, a time of turmoil, a storm upon Rome, unending, unforgiving, unbearable. The empire stood vast, from the deserts of Africa to the rivers of Germania, from Britannia's cold shores to the rich cities of the East. Rome seemed eternal, unshakable, invincible, but within, cracks began to spread. Silent at first, then louder and louder. Emperors rose, and emperors fell. Assassinations, conspiracies, plots in the shadows. Rome saw rulers who lasted only months, some even days. Power was no longer sacred. It was fragile, bought, stolen, taken by the sword, the army, once Rome's shield, became its master. Legions turned against each other. General fought general, brother against brother. Civil wars raged, fields burned, cities starved. The empire bled from within. But enemies did not wait. Barbarians pressed the borders. Germanic tribes crossed the Rhine. The Danube shook with invasion. Villages destroyed. Towns abandoned. Panic spread. Rome's walls trembled. In the east, the Persians grew stronger. The Sassanid kings rose, powerful, ambitious, defiant. They struck Roman lands, captured cities, took prisoners, even an emperor himself. Valerian captured alive. Shame upon Rome. Humiliation eternal. Meanwhile, plague swept the land. A silent enemy. Invisible, relentless. It struck rich and poor alike. It emptied streets. It darkened homes. Farmers died. Soldiers perished. Famine followed. The empire weakened further. Economy shattered. Coins debased. Gold and silver lost. Trade routes broken. Merchants fearful. Markets empty. Inflation soared. People starved. Hope faded. The spirit of Rome, once proud, once unbroken, now faltered. Temples stood silent, altars cold. The gods seemed distant. The people questioned. Faith turned to despair. Yet, even in crisis, Rome endured. Generals rose to defend it. Aurelian Gallienus, others fought to hold the pieces together. They faced enemies. They faced chaos. And still they fought. But the empire was no longer the same. It was fractured. The Gallic Empire in the west, the Palmyrene Empire in the east. Rome divided, torn apart. The dream of unity shattered. The 3rd century was an age of fire, of fear, of collapse. It was the beginning of Rome's long decline. Though it would rise again, though emperors would restore, the scars remained. The crisis had torn Rome apart. Emperors had risen and fallen. Chaos reigned. But then, a soldier rose from obscurity. Diocletian, a man of discipline, a man of vision, a man determined to save the empire. He looked upon the ruins, the broken borders, the starving people, the shattered authority, and he resolved, Rome must change, or Rome would die. Diocletian brought order, firm, unyielding. He reformed the army, strengthened the frontiers, raised new legions, fortified walls, discipline restored. Fearless once again. But he knew the empire was too vast, too stretched, too fragile. One man could not rule it all. So he made a choice, a bold choice, a revolutionary choice. The empire would be divided, east and west, two rulers, two emperors, united in purpose, but separate in rule. He created the tetrarchy, 4 rulers, 2 Augusti, 2 Caesar's balance. Strength, no longer one crown, but many. Sharing power, sharing burden. In the East, Diocletian ruled. From Nicomedia, strong, secure, close to the Persian frontier, guarding against the Sassanids. In the West, Maximian governed. From Milan, holding Gaul, Spain, and Africa, the empire no longer stretched thin. It breathed again. The Caesars, Galerius, Constantius, Chlorus, loyal to their Augusti, prepared to inherit, prepared to defend. Diocletian also reformed the state. Taxes standardized, bureaucracy expanded, edicts enforced, no corruption tolerated. The economy stabilized. The people calmed down. Rome had order. Rome had strength. Yet, his rule was strict, harsh, unforgiving. Christians were persecuted, temples restored, the old gods honored. For Diocletian believed, without the gods, Rome could not survive. For 2 decades, Diocletian ruled. The empire endured. The frontiers held. Peace returned. Rome was strong once more. But even Diocletian knew power was heavy, responsibility endless, and so he did the unthinkable. He abdicated. He stepped down voluntarily, retiring to his palace at Split, to his gardens, to his quiet life. The empire was divided. The tetrarchy stood. Rome had been saved, at least for a time. But division, though born of necessity, would one day bring new struggles, new rivalries, new wars, and the fate of Rome would be forever changed. The empire was divided. The tetrarchy faltered. Rivalries rose. Civil wars raged. Blood was spilled. The dream of unity seemed lost. But from the chaos, a leader emerged. Constantine, son of Constantius, a soldier, a strategist, a man destined for greatness. He marched through war, across provinces, through rebellion, through betrayal, until he came to the gates of Rome, the Milvian Bridge, 312 AD. There, he faced Maxentius, the rival, the tyrant. The battle that would decide Rome's fate. The night before, Constantine looked to the skies and saw a sign, a cross of light above the sun, with words, "In this sign, conquer." He ordered his soldiers to mark the symbol. On their shields, the Chi-Rho, the sign of Christ. And with faith, they marched into battle. The clash was fierce. Steel against steel. Shouts, cries. The river ran red. But Constantine's forces triumphed. Maxentius drowned. Rome was his. The empire's destiny changed. Constantine entered Rome, victorious, hailed by the people, not just as a conqueror, but as a savior. In 313 AD, he issued the Edict of Milan, freedom of worship, Christianity legalized. The persecuted faith, now protected, no longer in shadows, but in light. Churches rose. Bishops gathered. Faith spread. Rome embraced a new spirit, a new future. Constantine himself, guided by faith, saw his mission to unite empire and church. He called the Council of Nicaea, bishops from across the world, debating, defining, declaring the creed. One God, one Christ, one faith. But Constantine was more than faith. He was a builder, a visionary, He founded a new capital on the Bosphorus, a city of trade, a city of power, a city of faith. Constantinople, the new Rome, the shining jewel of empire. For decades, he ruled, strong, firm, guided by both sword and cross, until death came. In 337 AD, baptized Christian till the end, Constantine the Great, the first Christian emperor, the man who ended persecution, the man who gave Rome new faith, the man who changed history. Rome would never be the same. The empire reborn, the church rising, and the world forever transformed. The empire was once mighty, its legions unmatched, its borders vast, its cities thriving, its glory eternal. But time erodes all. The Western Empire began to crumble. Corruption spread. Senators sought wealth. Generals sought power. Emperors grew weak. The throne unstable. One ruler after another, assassinated, deposed, forgotten. Barbarians pressed the frontiers. Goths, Vandals, Huns, Franks, one by one. They pushed into Roman lands. The limes collapsed. The Rhine breached. The Danube crossed. The sack of Rome, 410 AD. Alaric and the Visigoths stormed the eternal city. For the first time in 800 years, Rome fell. Temples looted. Homes burned. The people wept. The world trembled. Then came Attila, the scourge of God. His Huns swept across the plains, burning, killing, threatening even Rome. But by fate and resistance, he turned away. The city spared, yet the fear remained. In 455 AD, another blow. The Vandals descended. Genseric's fleet pillaged Rome. 2 weeks of plunder. Gold, silver, sacred treasures all lost. Rome humiliated. The Western Empire, now but a shadow. Its army weakened. Its coffers empty. Its pride broken. And then, 476 AD, the final act. The boy emperor, Romulus Augustulus, deposed by Odoacer, the Germanic chieftain, the crown sent east to Constantinople, the Western Empire. No more. The eternal city now lay in ruins, its senate silent, its forum deserted, its aqueducts crumbling, its legions gone. But though the empire fell, Rome's spirit endured. In law, in language, in culture, in faith, Rome lived on. Yet the Western Empire was gone. The once mighty colossus, reduced to dust. The eternal city, no longer master of the world, but a memory of power, of pride, of ruin. The fall of the West did not end Rome, for in the East, the empire endured. Constantinople, the new Rome, founded by Constantine, stood strong between Europe and Asia, guarding trade, guarding faith, the city's walls, high, unbroken, protected by towers, by the sea, by courage, the emperors of the East ruled with strength. Justinian, the great reformer, dreamed of restoring Rome. His armies marched, Belisarius victorious. Africa reclaimed, Italy reclaimed. For a moment, Rome was reborn. But wars drained the treasury. Plagues struck the people. Enemies gathered. Persians in the east. 1,000-year rival clashed with Byzantium. But Constantinople stood. Then came Islam, the Arab armies, swift, relentless, taking Syria, taking Egypt, taking North Africa. The empire shrank, but the city survived. For centuries, the Byzantine Empire was the shield of Europe against Persians, against Arabs, against Bulgars, against Turks. The empire changed. Greek became its tongue, Orthodoxy its faith. Its art blossomed. Mosaics, icons, Hagia Sophia, a wonder of the world. Though battered, though broken, the Eastern Empire lived through dark ages, through invasions, through storms of history. Constantinople remained, the queen of cities, a jewel of the East, a fortress of faith. For 1,000 years, after the fall of the West, the Byzantine Empire carried Rome's legacy, a living reminder that the empire was not dead, but transformed. Rome fell, but Rome never died. Its stones crumbled, its legions vanished, its emperors silenced, but its spirit lived on. From the ashes of empire rose new kingdoms, new faiths, new dreams, all carrying Rome within them. The Latin tongue became the root of Europe's speech. Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Romanian, all children of Rome. Roman law, the code of Justinian, still whispers in courts, still shapes justice, still governs nations. Roman roads carved across mountains, cut through forests, still beneath our feet, some still carrying travelers, echoes of marching legions. Roman architecture, the arch, the dome, the aqueduct still stand, still inspire, from cathedrals to parliaments, from bridges to monuments. Rome's Senate, its republic, its debates, gave birth to democracy. Inspired republics, guided revolutionaries, the idea that citizens matter, that power must answer to people. The empire's faith, Christianity, spread from Roman roads, from Roman cities, to every land. Rome became the heart of a church. The Vatican, still called the Holy See, still carries the shadow of Caesars. Even in fall, Rome shaped conquerors. Charlemagne crowned, Holy Roman Empire proclaimed. Napoleon crowned himself in Rome, for even he knew no crown was greater. The Renaissance was Rome reborn. Artists painted ancient gods. Sculptors carved emperors. Thinkers studied Cicero. Architects rebuilt domes. Rome was alive. In brush, in stone, in thought, the modern world still bears Rome's mark. Our parliaments, our laws, our cities, our armies, our languages, all whisper Rome. Even across oceans, the new world carried Rome. Capitals built with domes, senates named for Rome, republics echoing her ideals. Rome is eternal, not in marble, not in empire, but in memory, in legacy, in every word we speak, in every law we follow, in every stone raised to the sky. The empire may have fallen, but Rome never will. For Rome is not just a city, not just a kingdom, not just an empire. Rome is an idea, and ideas do not die. Rome lives in history, in culture, in faith, in art, in every dream of power, in every struggle for freedom. Rome is eternal, the legacy that never dies.